When you were a
Yeah.
kid growing up down here, what were your ambitions? What did you think you would do?
I'll be completely honest. I had no idea. That is the honest answer. I think growing up in the village in Kingsimpton, all I knew is that I remember it as like a warm community. I think having grandparents that were a big part of that as well just made it all the more better. I was involved in a lot of things growing up in the village. It's so inspiring having grown up in that, like I say, that warm environment that people are always there. There's someone there for you. If it isn't a family, it's a neighbour. If it's not a family member, it's a neighbour. It's like someone close by. And I think you kind of feel like going out into the world, particularly living in London, you're like, for such a busy city, it can feel very lonely. That's the honest truth. And as much as I admire, Nan's resilience and her ability to create the most wonderful home for so many people, family and friends alike, it is terrifying moving away from that and kind of finding your own identity aside from that.
So tell me about the little books. Where did they come from?
Oh gosh, yeah, the little books. I mean, the interesting thing is that it was never meant to be a book. There was never meant to be books. I went through a very, very difficult period in my life where essentially I had suppressed a lot of things that I'd gone through for a long time, and I went through a lot of different types of trauma that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy, to be quite honest. And I had awful insomnia after a very nasty sexual assault that I went through. And unfortunately, this wasn't the first one. This was something I went through a few years ago, and I wasn't sleeping. I was turning to drink. I was turning to substances. I was in a really, really awful place. And I think for some reason, and to this day, I still can't like put it together in sort of accuracy or in words, but it would be like if I look at the timestamps from all of my poems, it's like 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m. It's all these insomnia times, or the witching hours, as I call them. And I would just write because I would just need some form of expression to help me. It didn't feel creative at the time, it just felt like a necessity to write and put my learnings into some form of what just happened to be poetry. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to write a poem, I'm going to write a book. And so what happened was that it started to help me, and each poem essentially from each book is a learning from my own life, from my own traumas, from my own healing, from my own friends or whatever, or conversations that I've had, and I've taken it away and gone, right, I'm going to put this into something that is solid and concrete, and I can use that. And then I got to the point where it was like I had 30 poems. I was like, this is really cool. I could help others with this. This is really amazing. Even though it was like my soul on paper, so it was also terrifying at the thought of going and publishing it. I was like, oh, maybe I could use this and then help others. And so I did some Googling. I was like, can I self publish? I found out I could on Amazon and got an illustrator to illustrate every poem, kind of gave the concepts of what I wanted, put it together, and just sort of went for it and submitted it on Amazon. And now it's, selling in different places all over the world, which is amazing. And I've had some incredible messages from people who have either gone through something similar or not something similar. And so it was never meant to be a book. And then now it's just almost accidentally got to the point where each book is now a part of my healing or my own life, where I've gone, these are the lessons. I'm going to note them down because it helps me. And if I can help others, my initial objective was, if I sell one book, happy days. I've helped someone. And it transpires that now I've sold, I think it's over maybe around 1,100, 1,200 in different continents, in different countries. And it's helped others, and that's amazing. So I'm really happy with it. It's still terrifying to think that my soul is out there being read by other people, but it's great.
What was it like when you held the first hard copy in your hand?
Even though it's so, and I shouldn't say this about my book, but like it was so thrown together, it was so raw, there was nothing neat about it, it was just these random illustrations with these heartfelt poems. It was really, it was, I don't know, I remember like getting really upset, or like getting emotional when I saw the first one sold as well. But it was just like, oh my gosh, this is my story, this is my raw, unfiltered, heartfelt 4 a.m. writings, and here we go, world. So it was really lovely to hold it in my hand, but also kind of validating, very validating. Like, yeah, that was a really crappy period, but you got through it, and this is the proof.
So what sort of feedback have you had then?
The one that springs to mind immediately is I had an older lady. I think she was in her 50s, and she messaged me on the website, and she sent me a really long message, and she was just like, I just want to say I've just finished the Little Book of Recovery, and I cannot put into words how much reading this has helped me get through my things. So I wanted to say thank you. And it was really heartfelt. She'd been through some awful abuse. What was beautiful is that she was so vulnerable and open in her message. She'd told me what she'd been through, and then she'd gone, thank you. Like, your words have helped me to come to put some sense of this all, or come to some sense with it all. And that was one message that sticks out. And then other ones have been like, didn't expect much from this little book, but actually these words are super helpful, would recommend to others who are in need of some sort of validation. And I had a bit of feedback about the Little Book of Confidence, which was the third one, from a friend the other day, and she was like, I didn't really realize that I needed to learn these lessons, and I didn't really realize how validating it could be, because I think there's so many conversations we don't have and we aren't vulnerable enough. So I think it's almost messages that say, thanks for being vulnerable, it validated my vulnerability, and that's lovely, I think. I've had a couple messages from the US, and I've randomly sold some in like the Netherlands, Germany. Haven't translated a single word. So there's, hopefully potential to kind of go even wider as well.
Yeah. And it must be quite fun working with an illustrator as well, I imagine, isn't it?
Love it. Absolutely love it, because I have a kind of random concept in my brain, and also I have the feelings attached to that concept. So to see it put into an illustration is something really special. So yeah, I love that creative process, definitely.
So which ones are in the pipeline now?
Oh my gosh, I actually have on my phone, I have a few concepts. So Recovery, Mindfulness and Confidence is out. So they're on Amazon now. And then I also have, and these are all I've started writing. So I've got the Little Book of Family, the Little Book of Loss, the Little Book of Little You, so about working on your inner child, shadow work, etc. Little Book of Nature, again, my Devon roots, love nature, I have to do something about nature. The Little Book of Introspection, so again, reflection. And the Little Book, the latest concept, is a Little Book of Heartbreak. And again, all of these have just come from me, my own thoughts and how I see the world, or related to things I've been through. The Little Book of Loss was actually started with when I lost Nan and read the poem at her funeral, and so many poems came from that time that I then thought, I think this needs to be a book, because there was so much emotion with that, and it meant so much to me reading that there, and she meant the world, and as did like Dandy or Grandad. So there's so much, and I will never recover from losing those two, and I think writing about it is helpful.
Because I was thinking while you were talking, we were talking about how your Nan sort of had this community around her and was at the heart of the community. In the way, you could say the same for you, if you've got this community building of people who are reading your books and getting something from them. It's just that it spread further.
Yeah, do you know what? I hadn't even thought about it like that. And I think almost like, yeah, even not until talking to you this very second had I realized that I was already trying to create that, like, and go, let's share the love and create this thing where we're together and we're helping each other. And like, I don't care if I've known you for 5 seconds or 5 years. Let's be vulnerable together. And I think there's something really special with that. And it's something that I love to see in people, and people's difficulties are at different levels, and everyone has their own level of hard. But I think just that ability to be vulnerable with people brings you closer together. And again, yeah, I think I didn't even realize I was trying to create this community. It's nice though. I love that. That's great.
When you're writing, you call yourself Sophia A. Why is that?
I don't know if I, for some reason at that point, wanted to separate myself from the things that I'd been through. That's my first thought. It's almost kind of like it was easier to have a pen name, and she was the one who was the forefront and the confident persona that I'd put in front of the books. And then it took the kind of, I don't know why, it took the pressure off. It didn't, but in my head, it took the pressure off me to then be this person. Like, it's almost like Sophia A is the strong person that I foresee myself to be, and the healing person. And then Sophie is the person behind it, trying to work through it all. I don't know. That's my initial thought. So I can't even remember, but I believe it helped me to detach slightly from what I'd been through.
And what do your mum and dad make of it?
I know Mum was like, I remember telling her, I was like, oh, I think I might put these poems into a book. She's like, oh, wow. What are you going to call it? I was like, well, I don't know. I really like, it's just a little book of recovery, isn't it? And she's like, yeah, oh, that's love, proper mumsy reaction. Oh, that is lovely, Soph. Yeah, you should definitely do that. And then, tells everyone about it. And, I think Dad, as much as he's very old school, when he's proud and feels like he can tell people he's proud, he will.
Good.
Yeah.
And if Soph growing up in the village could see you now, what would she think?
Oh gosh, that's a wonderful question. I think she'd be like, oh, that girl's really cool, I like, when you're little and you see someone who's older, maybe like 18, 19 or 20, whatever, and you're like, oh, I want to be like them one day. And they're really cool. And I remember being in primary school at King's Limpton and having seeing the year sixes as these really cool older people, and I wanted to be just like them. And I think there's part of Sophie now that has become the Sophie that was needed through that time of healing. So I think little Sophie, I hope, would feel safe and loved by this Sophie, definitely.
And what would this Sophie say to that Sophie?
Oh God, that makes me want to cry. I love this stuff though. This is why I write about it, because it's so powerful. You are more amazing than you could ever imagine, and just never, ever, ever second guess yourself, because I spent so many years doing so and thinking I wasn't good enough. And I just want to tell her that, go smash it, girl. Go own life, adventure. Be you, and don't second guess a single minute of it.